2 months after Copenhagen climate talks end, the UN climate chief, Evo de Boer, announces he's resigning. Lawsuits pile up over EPA's endangerment finding. 16 are filed to put a halt to coming regulations. And a new report digs deeper into damage caused by mountaintop removal.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good morning, I'm Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report on this 18th day of February 2010. Well, 2 months after World Climate Talks in Copenhagen ended with no new world treaty on climate change, UN Climate Chief Evo de Boer says he is stepping down. De Boer will leave July the 1st to join consulting firm KPMG 5 months before nations gather again in Mexico to try for a new climate change treaty. De Boer is a Dutch professional diplomat who has led the UNFCCC for about 4 years. He said when he took the job, it would only be for a few years, so the announcement itself is no surprise. But many observers say he was deeply disappointed by the failure of the Copenhagen meeting to produce a binding treaty, though he says a meeting did produce a solid foundation for a future deal. And the Copenhagen meetings included personal attacks on his leadership from negotiators and NGOs. At the final press conference, a visibly exhausted De Boer was asked whether he felt he should resign.
If I felt responsible for what had happened, I'd be long gone. And if I'm not responsible for what happened, then I shouldn't take the consequences, and if I were ever to go, I would do it on a high rather than on a low, I think. But I wouldn't agree that this conference was a disaster.
Jake Schmidt, International Climate Policy Director at the National Resources Defense Council, gave us his take on Evo's resignation.
Well, I think Ivo's tenure was expected to end at some point. He got it extended in the lead into Copenhagen. Obviously, I think Copenhagen took quite a toll on him personally and physically, and so I think that it wasn't a shock. He clearly wanted to do it with enough time to allow his replacement to take the reins and lead us into Cancun at the end of this year. So I think he wanted to give some time and allow the process to sort of unfold over the next couple of months.
You can watch my full interview with Jake Schmidt right here on the site. The EPA is headed to court after 16 lawsuits were filed by 3 states and industry and other groups over its controversial greenhouse gas endangerment finding. The ruling gives the agency broad powers to regulate GHG emissions under the Clean Air Act. The 3 states are Virginia, Alabama, and Texas. Also, industry groups are included and advocacy organizations. Many claim EPA regulations will have a devastating impact on businesses and the economy. Those filing suit fault the climate change science behind the finding. Some say recent revelations of errors in a report from the UN's IPCC should invalidate all use of that report. Environmentalists say EPA must start regulating greenhouse gases by law. The agency is close to releasing new rules for vehicles and large stationary sources of emissions in March. The U.S. Court of Appeals is expected to consolidate these cases. The legal process is expected to take months, if not years. Meantime, New York and 16 states have asked to intervene on EPA's side. A new report out says mountaintop removal mining continues to damage the environment long after regulators say they've been properly reclaimed. In a 68-page report to Congress, the Government Accountability Office investigators found mountaintop removal, which uses explosives to blast hilltops away to get at the coal reserves, damages water quality when leftover rock and dirt are dumped into nearby valleys and streams. The report said company reforestation efforts after the hilltops are cleared need improvement as well. The GAO says mine operators typically don't comply with rules to rebuild the contours of hilltops after they're exploded. The government says surface coal mining disturbed more than 400,000 acres of Appalachian forests between 1994 and 2003, while burying more than 700 miles of streams. The Sierra Club is suing the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, alleging 4 coal-fired power plants on University of Wisconsin campuses violate the Clean Air Act. The plants were grandfathered under the Clean Air Act. Those can operate without additional pollution controls unless the plants expand and emit more pollution. At that point, they have to meet the latest Clean Air Act standards. The Sierra Club alleges the plants on the 4 campuses have undergone millions of dollars worth of upgrades that should have triggered new pollution controls. Well, can wind energy unite a Democratic White House and Republicans in the State House? Virginia's Governor Bob McDonnell and other Mid-Atlantic governors will go to Washington this week to talk about how states can proceed in a coordinated fashion to access wind energy off the Atlantic coast. The plan has support from the Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club, which says the Commonwealth is one of 10 eastern states that could meet its entire energy demand with wind power. The Virginia Coastal Energy Research Consortium says building a 200-turbine wind farm would generate about 1,000 jobs at a cost of more than $1 billion and could take more than 10 years to build. The state of Virginia is also grappling with a $4 billion deficit, which could limit taxpayer funding for wind projects. Still, several state GOP lawmakers have filed bills this year to establish a wind energy authority. Here's a look now at some goings-on around the Beltway today. 8 a.m., NRC and DOE nuclear leaders started headlining the 6th annual Platts Nuclear Energy Conference at the Marriott Bethesda North. Clean Skies News is there. At 12 noon, the National Economists Club holds a luncheon on what a carbon greenhouse gas index would mean for the agriculture industry. That's at the Chinatown Garden Restaurant. 3 p.m., the World Bank hosts a forum to talk about climate change. That's the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us here in the Energy News Center. For any suggestions or comments about our programming here on Clean Skies News, you can email us at contact@cleanskies.com, and you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook too. I'm Susan McGinnis. This is Clean Skies News.